Hello, and welcome to this course about robotic process automation for SAP using UiPath. I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to teach you how to automate SAP and how UiPath can be used to design and execute automated workflows. RPA is a very hot topic, and big promises have been made about the potential benefits that software robots can provide to both big and small organizations. However, many companies have struggled to make these promises reality, and the high expectations for soaring productivity and efficiency have often turned out to be too optimistic. During this course, I will give you my view about how RPA can best be applied when the goal is to automate SAP-specific processes and workflows. The automation tool that we will be using during this course is UiPath, which in my opinion is currently the most flexible and quickest to learn tool to be used for SAP automation. UiPath is also a great choice as the company provides a free access for their Community Edition that provides all the same features as their full enterprise package. However, this course is not meant to be a comprehensive tutorial about UiPath. Our sole focus will be on discussing how the tool can be best applied for SAP. UiPath is a comprehensive application package with a wide range of tools for process automation, and not all of the functions are that relevant for SAP. In order for you to learn as fast as possible, we will not try to examine every single possibility provided by the tool. All the teaching during this course will happen through practical examples. We will start with a few slides, but I promise you that we will be automating actual SAP processes before you know it. Before I tell you more about the course structure, a word about the prerequisites for taking this course. You don't need to know anything about UiPath, but I'm assuming that you already have some very basic SAP user experience. But as long as you know how to navigate in SAP through different transactions, you know enough to follow the course without problems. You would also need an access to any SAP test environment in order for you to complete all the exercises done during the course. The structure of the course is the following. We will start with a short intro session about UiPath and RPA in general. We will quickly go through the most fundamental key concepts of UiPath Studio, which is the tool used to design the actual workflows. After this very brief intro, we will create and execute our first automated workflow. After going through the basics, the rest of the course is solely about going through practical examples how to automate various SAP transactions. The exercises we are doing will gradually become more difficult, and we will end our course by designing a relatively complex workflow that creates a custom Excel report by using various inputs from SAP. As you know, SAP does not work in a vacuum, and everyone who uses SAP spends a lot of time with Excel. In this course, we will also closely examine how to integrate Excel and SAP when we are designing our workflows. At the end of the course, we will examine how UiPath's Robot app is used to trigger the workflows you have designed and how Orchestrator web app can be used to manage and monitor all your robots. And now, it's time to start learning how to create automated processes for SAP. Despite focusing on SAP, the things you will learn during this course will also allow you to automate various other systems, and I can promise you that the tricks I will be teaching you are going to prove valuable to you during many occasions also outside SAP world. By the end of this course, you will have the skills necessary for creating complex automated workflows and potentially saving hundreds of man-hours for your organization. Before we start discussing about the automation tool we will be using, I want to say a few words about robotic process automation and SAP in general. I'm sure you have already heard tens of presentations and speeches about what robotic process automation is and what are its potential benefits. So I'm not going to waste too much of your time by providing background information about RPA. But just to make sure we are all on the same page, here's a common definition what is meant with robotic process automation. Robotic automation uses a software robot to run application software in the exact same way that a human user would use the application. In other words, robotic automation means that a software is running another application by using the same user interface that was designed for human users. So the word robot is a little misleading, as a software robot really is just a specific type of software. There are countless tools available in the market for process automation. Some of the most popular tools are UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. In this course, we will be using UiPath as our automation software. As the market environment for RPA software is evolving fast and there is no clear industry leader yet, it makes sense to try a few different tools just to examine how they differ from each other and what are the strengths and weaknesses of each vendor. Pretty much all of the companies I've worked with have explored process automation at least on some level. Based on my experience, RPA works best when the goal is to achieve quick wins and just make the life of your employees easier by reducing the time people are doing repetitive and tedious tasks. Many companies have been quite happy with their results, but the promise of genuine digital workforce with the capabilities to handle complex processes has turned out to be quite difficult to turn into reality. This has been especially true with SAP. What I have seen multiple times is that process automation has provided the best results when the project scope has not been too wide and ambitious. In my opinion, every single SAP user should have the basic skills of creating their own automated workflows based on their own needs. The users themselves know best what kind of software robots would provide the most value for them. With a few days of practice, it's possible for every user to easily double their productivity with SAP. So my recommendation is to keep it as simple as possible. For complex processes that are crucial for your business, actual customized programs or custom integrations pretty much always make more sense than trying to build complicated automated workflows using an RPA tool. But sometimes, these tools provide you an opportunity to replace a full-scale system integration project that will take 6 months to complete with a simple workaround solution that can be finished within a few days. So the RPA tool that we will be using during this course is UiPath. I have selected it as our automation software as in my opinion, it's the best tool currently available for SAP automation. Among the various RPA system vendors, UiPath has paid a lot of attention to make sure that their solution integrates well with SAP. The company has started an official partnership with SAP and has been a presenter at the annual Sapphire Conference. However, it's good to remember that UiPath is certainly not the only RPA software that can be used to automate SAP. For example, Blue Prism has started a partnership with WindShuttle to provide SAP-specific automated solutions. Let's have a quick look at the product portfolio of UiPath. UiPath's RPA platform has 3 main products: Studio, Robot, and Orchestrator. UiPath Studio is the tool that is used to design the actual automated processes. Studio has a drag-and-drop interface which has borrowed a lot from MS Visio and other flowcharting tools, and the workflows are presented as easy-to-follow diagrams. As we will soon learn, you can build a process by either linking activity boxes with each other or using a record tool that will create a process flow based on the actions you perform on your screen. UiPath Robot is used to execute the processes that you have built using the Studio. You can use these tools to create unattended robots that work without human supervision or attended robots that work after a human has triggered or called them. UiPath Orchestrator is a web app that is used to manage, deploy, and monitor the processes and robots you have created. You can create various rules, triggers, and queues for your processes and manage and optimize all your robots. During this course, most of our focus will be with the Studio. The Robot app is very simple to use after you have the skills to design workflows using the Studio. The Orchestrator only becomes valuable when you are running hundreds of different workflows in multiple environments. However, we will still have a brief look how it works, as it's important for you to understand the possibilities the app provides. As I'm sure you will rather learn how all of these tools work through practical examples, let's go to uipath.com and check how you can access all these tools. After clicking the Start Trial button from the right corner, you will land to this page where you can register for the Community Edition. The only difference between Community and Enterprise editions is that Community allows you to only have 3 robots. The functionalities of Studio have not been restricted in any way, and building workflows works exactly the same way between these 2 editions. After logging in, you are moved to your account admin page. Here you can manage all your user-related settings and also check the amount of robots you have available for your use. To start creating workflows, you first need to download and install UiPath Studio to your computer. The download link is available here. You can also access Orchestrator through this account admin platform. But first, you need to create a new service if a default service has not already been automatically created for you. To create a service, just click this button here. After a service is created, you can open it by clicking its name. The dashboard that opens is the UiPath Orchestrator. But before we start playing around with this tool, we first focus on how to use the Studio to design the actual automated processes. We start our journey with UiPath Studio by first going through some key terminology that's crucial for you to understand before we start creating workflows. After that, we will briefly familiarize yourself with the user interface of the Studio, after which we will start automating SAP transactions. Before we open the UiPath Studio app, there are a few key terms and concepts I want to go through first. Maybe the most important terms you need to understand are flowcharts and sequences. Both of these are used to structure and organize the actions that you want to automate. They are controlling which action takes place and what is the order of the actions. Both flowcharts and sequences are both working in a similar manner, but there are slight differences between them. Flowcharts are used for more complex workflows and can include, for example, decision nodes, which mean that there can be multiple paths of actions and your robot will select the correct path based on certain conditions. Sequences are simple lists of actions that are executed one after another. Sequences are used with shorter and simple workflows that usually form a small part of a larger project. The most common way is to first create a master flowchart for your project, and then insert other flowcharts and sequences inside your main flow to organize various sub-processes. This is especially handy with larger projects, as it will make it easier for you to manage your workflow by nesting smaller processes inside higher-level workflows. Next, let's have a few words about variables. Most of us probably already have a basic understanding of what is meant with variables. A variable can be used to represent anything that can have different values. The most common example is a mathematical variable where a letter is used to represent a number. However, the value of variable does not need to be a number, but can be, for example, text, image, list, location, file, or pretty much anything else. One way to see variables is to imagine them as boxes that contain different types of data. You can define that this variable can only contain numbers and nothing else. At any given time, this variable can only have one value, so it can't be both 1 and 2 at the same time. You can define that the value of this variable will change every time when a user performs a certain action. For example, every time a user clicks a certain item, the value of this variable will increase by 1. When you use a variable in a workflow, the value of the variable might change multiple times, but the variable itself stays the same. No matter what happens, our example variable can only be one specific number, and this variable will not work if you try to assign a letter or a word as its value. Here you can see the main types of variables used in UiPath. For example, a variable which has been defined as integer can only have values which are whole numbers without decimals. A Boolean variable can only be either true or false and nothing in between. A variable does not always need to have a single value, but it can also be a list of similar types of values. An array variable might have a value which represent a list of integers or strings. As I'm sure you would much rather be playing around with UiPath Studio than watching any more slides, let's decide that this is enough background information for now. In the next lesson, we start creating and executing our first automated workflow. It's time to start learning how to design automated workflows using UiPath Studio. We will first have a quick look how the user interface of the Studio is working and familiarize ourselves with the most basic functions of the tool. After launching the Studio app, please create a new project by clicking this blank project button here. Feel free to give your project any name you want. So this is what the UiPath Studio interface looks like. The interface has been divided into various different windows. The most important window is the main work area in the middle called Workflow Designer. This is where we will be building our actual automation projects. All the steps and actions that will be part of our automated workflow will be visible here. On the left side, you can see the Activities panel. The activities mean different types of actions that can be automated, like clicking, typing, or selecting data. However, not all activities are used to replicate an action performed by a human user. There are also many different types of activities for manipulating variables, creating loops, and setting up different conditions, just to name a few. You can search for different activities using this search bar here. Activities can be simply drag and dropped to the Workflow Designer window like this. Another way to create activities is to use the recording function that we will be discussing more in a second. On the right-hand side, you can see the Properties panel. This panel shows you the details of how a selected activity is working, and you can modify the settings and parameters of the individual activity. Let's start building our first automated workflow. The first step is to add a flowchart for our project. As you hopefully remember from the last lesson, there are two types of workflow structures we can use: flowcharts and sequences. The most common way is to first create a master flowchart and then nest sequences and other flowcharts inside it to organize different subprocesses. I will select Flowchart from the Activities panel and drag it to the main work area. This box here now represents our flowchart. Let's double-click the box to open and view it. Every flowchart includes a Start button, which represents the starting point of the workflow. We could now insert additional flowcharts and sequences inside the flowchart, but let's start with a very simple automation which can be easily organized using a single flowchart. When you are using multiple flowcharts, it makes sense to give a custom name for each of the boxes so you won't get mixed up with different flowcharts and sequences. Next, let's create our first variable. The Variable Editor window opens when you click the Variable menu from here. The list that opens lists all the variables part of your current project. Let's create a new variable with a variable type string. This means that the value of this variable can be any type of text. The text can include numbers and any types of special characters. We can give a default value for this variable by writing some text here, or we can leave the default value empty. The scope field here tells you in which flowchart or sequence the variable is located. For example, let's change the name of our master flowchart. As you can see, the name of the flowchart is updated here. Let's start adding activities into our workflow. I will select Message Box Activity and drag it to the flowchart. As you can see from the right side, the Properties window is showing all the settings related to the selected activity. Here you can, for example, change the name of this activity that is visible on top of the box. The other properties available for this activity are caption and text. Let's insert a header and some text for our text box. Note that we need to place the text we insert here inside quotation marks. Next, let's connect our first activity with the Start button to initiate our workflow. You can also right-click the activity and then choose Set as Start Node. And that's it. We have now completed our first automated workflow. Let's press the Run button here and see what happens. UiPath gives us a message box with the caption and the text we defined in the Properties window, just like we wanted. By default, your workflow is executed in debugging mode when you press the play button. If you want to run your workflow without the debugging mode, you can select Run Current File under the arrow. Next, let's modify the message box activity a little bit using the variable we have created. I will remove the previous message from the text field and start writing the name of our first variable. You can see that the system will automatically propose the variable for us to use. Let's run the workflow again and see what happens. You can see that the text in the message box now equals with the value we have defined for the variable. Let's see how we can change the value of the variable. I will search for the activity called assign and drag it to our flowchart. I will insert the name of the variable to the field on the left and assign a value for it using the field on the right. After this, I run the workflow. As you can see from the message, a new value was successfully assigned for the variable. You now know the very basics of how to create workflows using UiPath Studio. In the next lesson, we will start learning how the Studio's recording tool is working and how we can record the actions we are performing.